Giving Skeletor 5 reasons why he should leave Eternia. Here's your look at Mattel Masters of the Universe Revelation, Fisto. Evil warriors better be hungry, because Fisto has a knuckles sandwich for them, and it's got plenty of iron in it. The man with the mighty metal fist packs enough power in his punch to rival even Eternia's strongest warriors. As one of the planet's greatest heroes, it's only fitting that he protects the royal palace from dark forces, both technological and mystical. I hope you leave enough room for my fist, because I'm going to ram it into your stomach. Before we get a closer look at Fisto, let's actually first figure out how tall the figure stands. That's from the Running Man. The figure stands 7 1/4 inches in height, or just a little over 18 centimeters tall. Don't worry, there's not going to be any fist ramming into stomachs today. Not today. Not any day. Let's get comparisons out of the way. Maybe we'll do it next week. I don't know. But in the meantime, let's bring in a couple of figures for comparisons here. Here's Fisto next to Revelation He-Man. And while, yes, there is some very similar molds making use from the He-Man over to Fisto, it does seem like He-Man's got slightly taller proportions. Go figure. We can also bring in as well the Revelation Skeletor, who wasn't as disappointing as spray tan He-Man over there. And also for fun comparisons, how could I not? Let's bring in the Masters of the Universe Origins Fisto. You can see as well, when it came to Fisto, not only in the Revelation cartoon, but also when it comes to the figure, very heavily influenced by the original design, not only that the Origins had, but also classic Fisto as well. Checking out the accessories to come with old Fisto here. First of all, the figure comes included with a very, very familiar looking sword. It is the same type of sword that the original Fisto would have had. Nicely painted, I have to say, in the silver on the blade. The actual guard and hilt also looks like it's been given a little bit of paint, a little bit of love, and you can see a nice little glitter speckling that they've added to the paint. That adds a little bit of richness, a certain je ne sais quoi. This doesn't fit into his hand just yet. In order to accommodate him holding the sword, one will, of course, need hands. He only has closed fists right now, literally 2 of them on both the sides, but he does also come with a gripping hand for holding the sword. And he also comes included with a hand-slapping hand. I'm not going to make the reference now, but that can easily also be swapped out. I'm not really sure why I would want to have used a relaxed hand. I guess because he's already got the clenched fist on the one side. If you want to sort of change things up a little bit, yeah, you can give him the more relaxed hand instead if you want to. Picking the figure up, though, removing the hand, super easy. Just grabbing onto the forearm and wiggle, wiggle, wiggle till finally the peg comes free. Then go ahead and just replace the hand with the hand that you want to use. I'm going to use this hand for right now. And then, yeah, as promised, certainly didn't want to leave you guys hanging. He does also have the means to hold the sword. That looks nice. I like the look of the sword. There is no other place to be housing the sword on the figure. You can see there's no holsters or anything on the back of the figure's torso. So it's either the option of displaying him with the sword or without the sword. It's sort of like the menu of my parents' house growing up in the day. The menu was take it or leave it. I usually took it. We're going to go ahead and remove the sword for the time being. We'll move those other hands out of the way and getting a closer look at Fisto. Gotta say, loving the look of this figure. While I'm not so keen on the Revelation cartoon, having now polished off part 2, a while ago in fact, I feel somewhat interested to go back and watch this series again. And while the animation is fantastic on the cartoon, and it certainly does have a lot of the 80s nods and a lot of references to the back 80s cartoon and characters, I didn't really like the story. The story really didn't work for me. But I gotta say, I really like the design of these characters in the cartoon. I love the fact that both Fisto and Clamp Champ make an appearance in the series. And while you can kind of overlook, I think in some of the cases, if you're not a big fan of the series either, like myself, I think just the figures alone are actually really good. I feel like the newest stuff that we're getting here from Revelation actually does better of a job than what we got with the original He-Man and Skeletor. Skeletor was passable, but spray tan He-Man was dismal. I do think that the head sculpt wise is really good here on Fisto. Very much reads as still a brand new sculpt, but there's still a lot of cues taken here. Yes, you also notice it as well. I've got little speckles, a little bit of brown here on the side of his face. I can't imagine it's on every single person's figure, but of course I'm going to be pointing it out to you guys. I do like the sculpting of the beard. Nice sculpting of the hair. Kind of always reminds me of Outback from G.I. Joe. Another bearded redhead. But I like the head. I think the head sculpt is really good on it. And just to compare it to see how far we've come, I want to bring in back the original He-Man. I know I didn't really sing the praises when it came to the original Revelations characters, just because I thought that both He-Man and Skeletor were just okay. And while I'm maybe not as interested to invest in maybe like a Tila, I think I might still find myself tracking down a lot of newer figures, because I gotta say, like, they're looking really good. But I want to say, like, just to look at the head sculpts, how much far superior better it looks on Fisto than it did on He-Man. I don't even know what they had planned for He-Man, but it certainly wasn't successful. Fisto, I think, does a much better job of both the head sculpt, but as well the paint. I mean, when you look at it, how much more does it stand out like a sore thumb that He-Man's got some spray tan stuff going on here? He-Man spray tan always looks artificial. I'm not speaking from example, but I'm just to tell you. It looks like the arms are the same. I would imagine the torso is also the same. Yeah, you can remove the actual armor piece. The thing about the armor, though, it's very hard to remove. There's these little tabs onto the side, and while it may have been a harder plastic for the Origins Fisto, for example, bring him in, his torso was actually harder plastic, so it was a lot easier to remove the torso. When it comes to the armor here on this new Fisto, the plastic is a lot softer, and I feel there's more likely a risk that this could break off. You can kind of pull it through. You know what, I'm just going to leave it. But underneath all of that is, I would imagine, the same torso as what we're getting here with He-Man, with a whole lot less spray tan. A lot of the other things, like the lower torso, seems almost identical, if not for just the changing of the color. The thing about it, though, is while you're looking at it, it seems like something proportionally is off where He-Man is a little bit longer. I'm trying to wonder if it's actually like his mid-thigh that gives him a little higher reach. The knees seem lined up, the lower calves and boots seem a little more lined up as well, but yet when we get to the top of He-Man's legs, like his torso seems higher, doesn't it? His shoulders are also a little bit higher as a resulting of that. Maybe also He-Man's got a little bit longer of an abdomen area, where Fisto doesn't have that. I guess one good thing is it doesn't look like they're using exactly the same molds, and when you're certainly having them on display, at least of having not Fisto the same height as He-Man, it looks like they're characters of different sizes in Eternia. Let's go ahead and move He-Man out of the way here. The fur, the lower fur of his loincloth here, again, like the He-Man, is a softer plastic. It doesn't look like they've really painted as much as they just molded the plastic in this color. He's got, of course, the belt that matches that nice dark purple. We can bring in also the other Fisto. This is of course, the Origins Fisto. Fisto from the Origins line would have had more of the darker purple down below for his boots, and his loincloth, not really so much a loincloth as what we get for Revelation, is actually more just a brown, whereas this one kind of goes really a nice dark, almost brownish black. It looks really good. Now, when it comes to his fist, the thing about Fisto's fist that I like is that there's actually articulation. They didn't just feel the need to put on a molded fist, for example, and again, to draw attention to this one right here. This Fisto doesn't have the articulation. It has it here, but it doesn't have it in the wrist section. So that's one thing that this newer Fisto actually does have. Not only does he have the articulation here, but you can also pose the fist by rotating all the way around as well. Speaking of articulation, were we speaking of articulation? Yes, we were. Speaking of the articulation on Fisto, let's do that right now. The head rotates all the way around. It hinges up, it hinges down. As well, you can also rock it back and forth too. The arms comfortably come out at a 90-degree angle. You can also, as well, take those arms and rotate them all the way around. There's a swivel at the bicep. A double hinge on the elbow, although good luck. Good luck. You're never gonna be able to bend that. You can kind of bring it back a little bit further, but the size of Fisto's biceps are just way too big to accommodate a double hinge on the elbow. I appreciate that it's there, but you really can't get that double hinge action happening. Anyways, the wrist do rotate all the way around. Again, as mentioned, you can also rotate the wrist. Even though he is really encased inside this actual armor piece over top of his torso, he does have an abdomen torso crunch, an abdomen ball joint, you should say. He has a waist swivel, legs split out. You can swivel 3/4 of the way up the thigh, all the way around. Figure has double hinge on the knee. His boots rotate back and forth. Basically, the way that that's plugged into the lower calf, for example, you can rotate back and forth this way, hinging up and down this way, and also the figure does have foot-ankle articulation. Nothing in the toes. Figure doesn't have either any I should say, display stand, even though he does have pegs on the undersides of his feet. But there's Fisto, once again. And once again, we can also bring in the Origins Fisto. Yeah, I mean, you can really see how they have advanced the scale, and yet while still keeping a lot of the same checked off boxes for Fisto, He's really a nice looking figure. Even if you can kind of separate yourself, which I'm planning really to do, to separate myself from the notion of these being Revelation tied in characters. They're really nice, modernized takes on the original designs of these characters. And that's one thing I do have to say to the credit of Revelation. While I wasn't as crazy about the storyline, I gotta say, like, the animation was fantastic, and the designs kept still true to the original classic look of these characters. Fisto looked great on screen, and he looks equally as good as a plastic figure released by Mattel. Shown on the bottom of the packaging for Fisto here is the other three figures that make up this new wave. It's Andra, it's Scareglow, and Pew Pew, it's also Stinkor. No, he's not got invisible guns in his hands. Now let's play a little game as to guess which figure out of those three that I just listed is the one that I chose not to pick up. Somebody right now in the back of the audience has been yelling Stinkor this whole time. Shame on you, sir. Of course I would be picking up Stinkor. No, it is Andra. As fine of a character as she may have been in Revelation, I have no desired interest to pick up Andra. If anything, my approach to picking up these figures from the Revelation line is not necessarily because I dug the cartoon so much. It's because they look like they're classic-looking characters. Back in the day, I was collecting before it was Matty Collector, this Super 7 sort of took over after that. It was the Master Universe Classic stuff. And while we were getting sort of more modernized takes on the figures, one thing I did like about the newer stuff that we're getting from Revelation is that it kind of has that classics look and vibe to it. If you can detach it from the idea of it tying into the cartoon, these are actually nice looking figures. They look like their vintage counterparts. And that's one thing I did have to say I liked about Revelation. It wasn't the story. It wasn't the swerves and twists and turns that they put in there. And it certainly wasn't the abuse that poor He-Man took over the course of those two parts. It's the fact that all the characters kept to their still vintage look. Fisto looked like Fisto. Clamp Champ looked like Clamp Champ. And then the other two figures that I did pick up in this wave, Scareglow and Stinkor, still look like their old toy counterparts. So I like that in the sense that the Revelation figures feel like more modernized, more articulated figures. They're approaching the market of those that aren't so keen to getting the more modernized, articulated classics or origins figures. This kind of getting those taller scale figures, but still getting that vintage vibe. It's one of the reasons why I did pick up Fisto. It's one of the reasons why I picked up Scarecrow. And despite what the person in the back of the audience did say, it is one of the reasons why I also picked up Stinkor as well. Pew pew. The only figure I didn't pick up was Andra. Will I pick up an Andra? Probably not. Even if she's clearanced. Nothing against Andra. I may still pick up a Teela because it's Teela, but Andra, I'm not feeling Andra whatsoever. What do you guys think of this line? Let me know down below in the comments section whether you've been picking them up for yourself and kind of just giving me a generalized idea. What did you guys think of Revelation? I'm not going to get in this to heated debate level, but let me know down below in the comments section what you guys thought of Masters of Universe Revelation. Good animation, good nods to the 80s characters, wasn't so crazy about the storyline. If they are going to be making another Revelation cartoon, you know I'm still going to watch it because the animation was that good. If you can bring me in just by the animation and the look of the characters alone, even if the story is, as Stinkor, a little on the Pew side, I'm still going to be digging the idea of watching new He-Man cartoon. But let me know down below in the comments section. And also while you are new here, and if you're hopefully, I would hope to think you're enjoying the content that you're seeing. Make sure if you haven't already done so that you hit the subscribe button, that you as well turn on the bell notification and keep, yes, the peepers peeled while we have wrapped up the reviews for Fisto. Reviews of both Scareglow and Stinkor, Pew Pew, will be coming your way in the not so distant future. As always, guys, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.